Please go right.
Yes, good. Great. So welcome to everybody back from the break. We're really lucky to have an outstanding leader with us, Mayor Bill Peduto of Pittsburgh. Mayor Peduto has been mayor of Pittsburgh for 7.5 years. He became mayor on my birthday, November 5th, 2013. So that's an auspicious, doubly auspicious day. And he's been guiding Pittsburgh remarkably, including Pittsburgh's leadership in sustainable development, putting the SDGs at the heart of the city's agenda, the great institutions of Pittsburgh, many great universities that are playing a very dynamic role, and working with mayors across the region, the Ohio River Valley region and Upper Appalachia in particular. He's going to talk to us about that, about how to connect this region, which has been a region very much part of the fossil fuel age, of course, a coal region, a fracking region, how to make it a leadership region of the new green economy. And Mayor, thank you for really wonderful, remarkable leadership in this. It's very extremely important and very inspiring. And I know we have an administration in Washington that can hear this message and should hear this message very loud and clear. So you have today participants from universities across the country. We want to carry this word forward. So please tell us about the plans. I have here for everybody to look up a particular document called Marshall Plan for Middle America Roadmap. It is the mayor's roadmap with his colleagues from across the region of how to make Middle America the leadership area for the sustainable development of our country. Mayor, please tell us about the plan, your ideas, and what we as a national university network should be doing to help you to realize this.
Well, thanks, Jeff, and thank you for the invitation as well. I usually don't read off of notes, but with this presentation, I want to try to remain as concise as possible. There are a few different paths that we took in order to be able to become the second U.S. city to adopt SDGs, the UN's SDGs, and the third to create the review system that we presently have. One of them was something that started right from the very beginning of our administration, working hand in hand with the Heinz endowments. We created a metric that we call P4, People, Planet, Place, and Performance. Not knowing, and this is back in 2013, 2014, not knowing the direction that the United Nations was heading with the 17 SDGs. And there's a very common ground between what we were trying to accomplish in creating a new economic strategy for 21st century cities and what the United Nations was trying to do on the global basis. So it sort of was a hand in glove approach where the SDGs became the perfect outlier of looking at it more on a global scale and our P4 much more on the micro scale. At that same time, we were facing environmental challenges. Pittsburgh and the area around us, we are very proud of our heritage. We are very proud of the history that we have that helped to create this country and build this country. And we have the scars to prove it. The scars that have been left in air quality and water quality, the scars that have been left in economic industry that has slowly been dying. And we recognize that if we do nothing, those areas will be left behind. So when you combine those two different factors together, what you end up having is very much this conversation, especially in areas that have been historically heavy industry, no matter where it is in the world. And then if you add in the component of top research facilities, in Pittsburgh's case, Carnegie Mellon and the University of Pittsburgh, you have this whole new opportunity that is right here, right now, and with an administration in Washington that gets it. So let's walk through this a little bit. Let me use my helpful notes. It's very difficult, by the way, to govern a city during winter in an election year when you have to like take off the one hat of governance and put on the other one as candidate, and then take that off and put it back, and
with the face mask on.
With the face mask on. Yes. And by Thursday, it seems like Friday. So the journey that we started with SDG, I told you a little bit about it, but when we were finishing out our resiliency plan, and this is part of a bigger plan that I had the opportunity to share with Jeff about one PGH, recognizing all the challenges, the shocks, and the stresses that we face. We were first really introduced to the United Nations ideas, and this is back around 2017. The goals and our plans were going along a concurrent path, and most cities in the US did not really have much exposure or knowledge of the SDGs. They were being discussed at national levels and not really being focused on by where they could be implemented the fastest, the subnational. Our team was looking for ways to benchmark the performance of delivery. We wanted to be able to show where we are on all types of services, and then be able to show the public that we're actually delivering on these promises, especially when something as lofty as the United Nations SDGs become available for cities. There was a natural connection between building a city's resilience and sustainability and linking to a higher aspiration in network connection between cities. And again, this is a connection that occurs not on a national basis, but on an international basis. We began a partnership with Brookings and began to connect with other cities around the world who were working on SDGs. It was through this network and the shared experience that we realized that so much of our work in local government is connected to the attainment of global goals. Cities truly are the delivery units for global action. Nation states make promises, cities deliver. 2019, we committed our administration to the global goals, and over the course of the next year, we completed our first voluntary local review, or an analysis of city operations and to their connections to the SDGs. New York City first pioneered the VLR, and Los Angeles soon followed, and Pittsburgh became the third US city to develop a VLR. Think about that. Pittsburgh, a city of 300,000 people, taking action on a local scale and connecting it to global goals. We're now using the information in our VLR process to guide budgeting through a priority-based budgeting process that is integrating the SDGs, incorporating the SDGs into neighborhood and comprehensive planning, and to make sure that the average Pittsburgher understands it, using each of those little icons of the 17 different areas and showing in each of our budget decision makings which one of the goals that we are working to attain. Doing the same thing as we put together neighborhood plans for development and future growth, and showing where and how it will directly affect on a global basis that neighborhood's decision making about adding a playground, and how it will have an effect in being able to deal with our combined sewer water overflow problems, and being able to work on opportunities for children. Measuring our procurement spend based upon SDGs, and vetting procurement and vendors based upon the vendors' commitments to SDGs. We recently executed a pension investment strategy based upon our commitment to the SDGs, and we divested from fossil fuels, one of 12 cities in the world to do so, but also prohibiting investments in guns and ammunition, manufacturers, and for-profit prisons as well. This is all within the past 2 years. And this is what any city could be doing, and how we want to help to make other cities outside of the New Yorks and the Los Angeleses and the Londons, understanding how they can be a part of the United Nations efforts and actually measure and show how their actions take place. So how does that incorporate into this larger plan that Jeff spoke about? The mayors of 8 different cities in the Northern Appalachia and the Ohio Valley all got together. It's the mayors of Huntington, West Virginia, Morgantown, West Virginia, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, Youngstown, Dayton, Columbus, Cincinnati, Ohio, and Louisville, Kentucky. And what we realized is with the change that is inevitably going to happen into renewable energies, our region is going to be the one area that is going to be the most affected. And you can pick whatever country it is that you want in the world, and you'll find that same area. But there's something in common with each of our cities. Each of our cities has a leading research facility. Whether you're in Huntington and it's Marshall University, or Morgantown and it's West Virginia University, Columbus, Ohio State University, the University of Dayton, the University of Cincinnati, the University of Louisville, Youngstown State, Carnegie Mellon, and the University of Pittsburgh. We have this opportunity to create a unique partnership between a public institution and a city to help to provide the innovation to existing companies to start to work towards clean energy, renewable energy, and clean technology. And if you think about it, these companies that have built their portfolios over 150 years around coal, gas, and oil are the ones that, if they want to be around for the next 50 years, will need the direct assistance in order to be able to survive in a new economy. We want to be able not only to rebuild the grid system and looking towards direct energy opportunities around hydrogen, but we want to be able to create the electrification of public transportation. And should we be buying those buses out of China, where 95% of all the electric buses are manufactured, or should we buy them out of Lordstown, Ohio, in really changing that economy and being able to help the folks in Eastern Ohio? Should we be purchasing our wind turbines from Germany using Polish steel, or should we use American steel made in Pittsburgh that is then being manufactured in Northern West Virginia? We have all of these opportunities. And in Pittsburgh, we have the perfect example of how we can show you how this works. We have 2 buildings that were created by local architects and local engineers that meet the highest standard of sustainability in the world. They meet the Living Building Challenge. The Living Building Challenge means that the building uses the same amount of energy as a flower. And in fact, it's not net zero, it's net positive. It actually makes more energy than it uses. And in the same process, all of the materials are looked at through life cycle economics and the circular economy, and are a part of that design in both cases of these buildings. Everything from the engineering to the systems of ventilation to the carpeting were purchased within a 100-mile radius of Pittsburgh, meaning that we can be building the buildings of tomorrow today. Now, imagine if you took that and put it on steroids, and you had this opportunity with federal assistance, state tax abatements, local investments, private equity, and you targeted a geographic region like we did after World War II, and you made that area an area where the future was being developed. Now, we have another option, and this is the option that has been given to us and that had been pursued at that same time that we were following this SDG guideline, and that's called frack and crack. It's you frack the ground to get the gas, and then with the excess gas, you crack it to build pellets for the plastic industry to grow. And the Ohio Valley and Northern Appalachia has been targeted by international companies in order to come in and provide that as a future that is limited into an area that had to learn the hard way when it got knocked to its knees in the 1980s, because it never saw the warning signs or recognized them or accepted them, that heavy industry was being lost to Asia and Europe. And it took us 20 years to get out of a depression and 10 additional to get out of a recession. So we have the opportunity to change the clock and look at this Marshall Plan as the opportunity to invest in the communities, the people, and the companies that have made this part of our nation a leader for the past 150 years through natural resources, and now to be able to be a leader in green technology by combining the innovation sector of our universities together with the practicality and the talent of our companies, and government being the connector between the two in order to make that happen. Finally, that leads us to Paris and Pittsburgh. What makes the Marshall Plan different is that it meets all of the benchmarks of the Paris Agreement. Now, if Northern Appalachia and the Ohio Valley can say that we can meet the agreements of the Paris Agreement, and it will mean that we will have a net plus 500,000 jobs in the next 10 years. And if you read the report, you'll see this. If we do nothing, we're losing 100,000 jobs in the energy industry in the next 10 years. West Virginia alone is going to lose 40,000 jobs. It's a state of 1.4 million people. They can't lose 40,000 jobs. But if we do this investment over that same 10 years, we'll gain 400,000 jobs. And not only that, but we will meet the goals of the Paris Agreement. We will be able to expand the area where the UN SDGs are being met as well. And we'll do it in the area that we go through the hardest transition to a renewable energy and a circular economy. If we can do it, there's no place on earth that can say they can't do it. We take away the argument that it is an economic challenge or it is economically harmful. And we show how it can be the saving grace of industrialized areas and allow them to be a part of their nation's economy for the future. Yes, this is a green plan. It is a way to be able to get the Paris and Pittsburgh promise done. But it is dressed up as an economic development strategy, which takes away a lot of the politics and the extremism that divides union labor workers from environmentalists. And it brings them together at one table in order to be able to save a place that they call home. You know, I talk to people from coastal areas that are working for Congress people. They ask, why wouldn't you just leave? Why would people in Northern Appalachia stay if there are no jobs? Because it's home. They don't want to leave. They just want an opportunity to see a place for themselves in the future. So if you pull these three things together, the UN SDGs and how cities should be at the forefront of them, the ideas and the plans of a Marshall Plan, and then finally the Paris Agreement and how cities have that opportunity, and in the areas that will be hardest hit through the transition, putting in the investment in a proven plan like the Marshall Plan, you can see how they all fit together as the three legs of a stool. And in Pittsburgh, we want to be able to show that to the rest of this country and to the rest of this world.
Wow. I think it's absolutely compelling. And I love the vision of the network of the cities of the region getting together as you've described it, and also the network of universities. And so anything we can do as SDSN USA to help support that university network of the universities throughout the region to really support the plan and to support the businesses in the region, because I think this is a very practical point of what universities can do. which is to help the businesses tool up, get advanced technologies, be part of that. Please, this network is designed for exactly that kind of function, and we really want to support that. And for all of our participants, I want to underscore a few things, Mayor, if I could, that I think are extremely important. One is that as a project for us as SDSN USA, we could promote VLRs, voluntary local reviews, in every community where we live. So wherever your campus is, to make sure that the metropolitan area or the city in which you're located is doing a voluntary local review of the SDGs could be the fastest way that we put the SDGs on the map across the country. I think it's a fantastic approach. I'd like us to go to our dear friend, Mayor Greg Fisher, also your colleague, close colleague in the Marshall Plan. Mayor Fisher, of course, who spoke to us last year, Mayor of Louisville, is the president this year of the Mayor's Conference for the whole country. And I think getting the mayors engaged and getting the universities engaged and getting these VLRs out would be an incredible education across the country. And the education side is extremely important for people to know what this is about, because that's, I think, the way to make the politics work. And I loved what you said. National governments make promises, but cities deliver. And this is a big difference. It's one thing to have a high level goal, and it's in the cities where this is going to be delivered. So VLRs everywhere, university networks which work with the local businesses on tech solutions, I think is extremely important. And you're home to two great universities. But I think it's fair to say that Carnegie Mellon is probably the world's leader on robotics and computer-human interface. So not only a great university, but probably the world's leading research center on this. And that's what we need right now also. So this is a gift for the city, the region, but also for the whole country and the world. And then I think that the final point that I would like to echo and underscore, Mayor Peduto, is the industrial policy dimension, which this administration wants to do. We have a history of industrial policy success in this country, not as many as we should, but Tennessee Valley Authority was the New Deal example of this. California is an example of this because it was a conscious policy to build the semiconductor industry in the defense sector of California as a regional policy after World War II. And so it's not an accident that we have Silicon Valley there. It didn't just happen. It was part of a national vision that we need a strong, cutting edge technology in semiconductors after the transistor was developed in 1947 or invented, and the integrated circuit in 1959 to build up California's role. Texas and Alabama and Florida were a conscious part of regional development for the space mission in the 1960s. And the Kennedy administration was very conscious. We're putting a space center in Huntsville, Alabama. We're building the space center in Texas, Cape Canaveral, and so forth, was a regional policy for this crucial sector. So I think you're really, and I come from Detroit, which was arsenal of democracy in World War II, and where industrial development was built, of course, building on the auto industry originally, but building for America's war effort and industrial effort after that. So I think it's spot on, this idea. And working with the administration, I think they need the practicalities, actually. How do you turn the vision of decarbonization to actual jobs and into actual regional development? And I think you're way ahead of thinking about that. And one of the things I would like us to think about is how to structure financing. What's the best way? Should there be a green investment bank? Should there be federal financing for long-term low interest loans for new industry coming in? Should it be, of course, direct public investments and so on? So I think there are a lot of choices to be made. But I want the administration to take the document and say, okay, this is part of our plan for decarbonization. Now, how do we put it to work?
That's exactly it. And that's, with the group that you have assembled, there's several different opportunities. Number one is looking at that as the next steps with it, putting the meat on the bones. We purposely left it open for discussion. We didn't want to present a plan with a ribbon on it and say, this is it, vote up or down. That process rarely works. In fact, it tends to make people negative to something, even if they agree with it. So what we wanted to be able to do is have a project that has backing. We have a sister organization called Reimagine Appalachia that is running their own track. The same thing. They realize the economic hardship that will be faced by this geographic region over the next 10 years and the environmental opportunity that is facing it. So they've created a grassroots support based primarily around environmental organizations, but now starting to reach out to labor organizations. So that's there as well. And then one thing, and I'd ask Caroline if she could go online and just send everybody the link. In 2014, we created the first MOU with a university. The city of Pittsburgh and Carnegie Mellon University went into a memorandum of understanding that allows me to utilize the university the same way I do my public works department. So if somebody complains about a pothole, I get it on the phone and I say, here's where the pothole is, fill the pothole. If we have an idea about creating the next generation of traffic signals that utilizes technology in order to be able to run algorithms that can increase the traffic flow by 32%, I should be able to pick up the phone and call Carnegie Mellon and say, how do we do this? And then they should be able to utilize the city as their urban lab in order to be able to create the technology and then have it created into industry. And so by working with them and then the Hillman Foundation, we've been funding projects at Carnegie Mellon for years that then have the opportunity to become locally based companies. That led through the Obama administration into something called Metro Lab. It's in 20 cities in the United States right now. And it's a partnership between those cities and those universities, and then networked across the country so that when Mayor Pete was working with Notre Dame and creating the sensor detection within their sewer system so that they could create flow and open areas and not have to dig out all the pipes and build bigger pipes, that same type of technology can be shared with Pittsburgh, and we can utilize it as well. So if you aren't a part of Metro Lab with your town, get to become a part. And here's the last ask, and this is something I've asked Jeff. We need to have the voice of universities around the Marshall Plan, not just from those 9 universities that I mentioned, but from the idea of how innovation plus government plus private industry can help to make this country a leader and to be able to reach these UN SDGs and the Paris Agreement goals. And it would be a really good time for an op-ed. So tomorrow, the United States will be recognized back into the Paris Agreement. And there will be a lot of op-eds that will be written about how this is good for the planet and all the warning signs are there on climate change. But it'd be nice to read one about economic development opportunity after reading so many of how it will bankrupt us, and having one come from economists and leaders of universities of how if we partner and maybe give a little shout out to the Marshall Plan and how if we look at this in a different view, this could be a great economic boost about being part of, once again, the Paris Agreement.
Completely. And by the way, if we do nothing, that's really what's going to bankrupt us, because we're going to end up with defunct industries, with decline, without competitiveness, without the ability to produce the things we want. And that's the real disaster. So I think not only is there the positive opportunity, but truly, if we stay put with the old and fading industries, we're sunk. because the world is moving forward. China's definitely moving forward. And we ought to have this policy exactly put in place. So we're going to follow up on the op-ed piece on the Metro Lab. And, I really do want to tap Carnegie Mellon's expertise in this. Especially, we have a meeting coming up in early April on digital cities, and I can't imagine, more knowledge than you have at CMU about how really smart systems are going to redesign transport. And you've been at that for many years, so I want to make sure that we get that into this upcoming meeting. Wow, phenomenal. Completely with you, and so well done. Really important. You've given us a lot to talk about and a lot to think about. We have breakout sessions coming up, one of which is on localizing the Zero Carbon Action Plan, which was our overarching plan of what it means to get to zero by 2050. And in that plan, we emphasize this is a lot of jobs and a lot of production of the new economy. So we don't have the details either in that. We're fitting in your details into that framework. I could just mention to you that in academia, we had an expression for that. Paul Samuelson, the famous economist at MIT, said, if you want to convince another academic of something, you give them a half-finished theorem and you let them finish the other half, so that they prove it for themselves. And it's just like you say, don't give them the full plan with the ribbon around it. Let them co-design this thing. Yep. And then we're going to come up with something where there's a lot of buy-in. So I think the wisdom is very, very strong. I know we've come to the end of our time with you, but we are going into these breakout sessions and we will follow up, and I will be back to you shortly on a lot of the things that you raised. But you've given us some great ideas for the network nationally, and we're going to get those voluntary local reviews going throughout the country. I think that's a great homework assignment for us.
That's fantastic. And again, thank you for putting together this group. The timing is perfect.
We'll do it. We'll follow up.
Thank you
so much. Thanks so much, Mayor. Great to see you. Thanks for being with us.